You're 42 years old, and the land is the only thing you know, the only thing your father knew, and the only thing his father knew before him. You live in a remote valley in the mountains where the nearest road to a paved highway takes 4 hours by mule, where the government is a rumor that arrives years late, where the law is whatever the man with the most rifles or the most money says. Your house is the same one your grandfather built 70 years ago. Adobe walls that crack a little more with each rainy season. A tile roof you've repaired so many times that not a single original tile remains. A packed dirt floor your wife sweeps every morning, even though the dust always returns before noon. You have 3 children who sleep in the same room where you slept as a child, sharing beds made of planks and mattresses stuffed with straw that itches the skin, but is better than the cold ground. Your wife works as hard as you, maybe harder, because in addition to helping in the fields, she has to cook, clean, care for the children, and keep running a house where water has to be carried from a stream 20 minutes away on foot. For city dwellers, rural poverty is an image in a documentary, something they watch while eating food that costs more than your family earns in a month. For you, poverty is the air you breathe, so constant and so invisible that you forgot there's another way to live. For generations, your family cultivated corn and beans on these lands that barely give enough to survive. The land is difficult here. The rainy season is unpredictable, and every year is a gamble against weather and luck. When the harvest is good, it barely covers enough to eat and save seeds for the next year. When the harvest is bad, you have to choose between feeding the children or feeding the animals that are your only investment for the future. Your father died with cracked hands and a back bent from decades of work that never paid enough, and his father died the same way, and his father's father probably died the same way since times nobody remembers. The government promised roads, promised schools, promised health clinics. But the promises fade as fast as the morning fog, and the only thing left is the same misery as always, with a different president on the television you don't have because electricity never reached your valley. The middlemen who buy your harvest pay pennies for what they sell for pesos. And when you complain, they explain with feigned patience that transportation costs money, that the market is tough, that you should be grateful anyone bothers to come up here to buy anything from you. For them, your work is worthless because you are worthless, because you were born in the wrong place, and that condemns you to a life where effort never translates into progress. The year everything changes is the year the drought kills half your crops, and the insect plague destroys the other half. You look at the withered fields where there should be golden ears of corn and feel a void that goes beyond your stomach. A void that is the certainty that this time there's no way to get ahead. Your children look at you with eyes that still trust that Dad will solve the problem, because Dad has always solved the problems. Because Dad is the strong man who works from sunrise to sunset and never complains. But this time, there's no visible solution, no saved reserves, no relative in the city who can send money, no God who answers the prayers your wife prays every night, with the faith of someone who has nothing else to hold on to. That's when the men from the mountain arrive, not as a threat, but as an opportunity, not with weapons but with seeds of a color you've never seen, and a proposal that sounds like the difference between life and death. They explain that all you have to do is cultivate, that they provide the seeds, the fertilizers, the technical knowledge, and that when the harvest is ready, they take care of everything else. The payment they mention for one season is more than you've earned in 5 years of corn and beans, enough to fix the roof, buy clothes for the children, maybe even send the oldest to the town school where they say they teach reading and writing. You know what they're asking. You're not stupid even though you never went to school. But hunger has a way of simplifying moral decisions until only one possible answer remains. The first growing season is a revelation of everything you didn't know. You didn't know. The men from the mountain send a technician who lives with you for months, a young man who speaks little but knows the plant as if it were an extension of his own body. He teaches you to prepare the soil in ways you'd never seen, to space the plants to maximize yield, to recognize signs of disease before they spread. You learn that this plant needs more water than corn, but less than beans, that it prefers partial shade but doesn't tolerate excessive humidity, that there are precise moments to prune and precise moments to fertilize and precise moments to harvest. Your knowledge of the land, the knowledge inherited from generations, combines with the science the technician brings. And the result is a harvest so abundant you can't believe it came from the same land that barely produced scrawny corn. On harvest day, you feel a pride you hadn't felt since your first child was born. The deep satisfaction of seeing the fruit of your labor turned into something tangible, into mountains of product that the men from the mountain collect with trucks that appear and disappear on roads you didn't even know existed. They pay you in cash, bills so new they crinkle when you count them. And that night you buy meat in town for the first time in a year. And your children eat until they're stuffed, while your wife cries silently, because tears of relief are the hardest to explain. The following years transform your life in ways you didn't anticipate. Each season you perfect your techniques, learn tricks that increase yield, develop an instinct for predicting problems before they materialize. Your plot expands because the men from the mountain trust you. They assign you additional lands that belong to families who went north or who simply disappeared without explanation. You hire other peasants from the area to work with you, men as desperate as you were years ago, and you teach them what you know, while paying them more than they would ever earn growing corn. Your house no longer falls apart. It has a new metal roof that doesn't leak, reinforced walls that keep in the warmth in winter, even a generator you turn on Sundays so the kids can watch cartoons on a television you bought in town. Your wife has a gas stove that doesn't fill the kitchen with smoke, clothes that aren't patched, and a smile you had forgotten what it looked like on her face. Your children go to school. The oldest already knows how to read and write and talks about being a doctor someday. An ambition that 5 years ago would have been a cruel joke, but now seems almost possible. You've become someone respected in the community, the man who brings work, who lends money without charging interest, who helps pay for funerals and weddings when families can't afford them. Nobody talks about what you grow because everyone knows and nobody wants to know. Because collective silence is the price of a prosperity the government never brought. The psychological transformation is slower but equally profound. You start seeing your work not as a crime but as a form of agriculture, not different in essence from corn or coffee or any other crop the land produces. You tell yourself that you only plant and harvest, that what happens afterward isn't your responsibility, that the product leaving your fields could end up anywhere, and that has nothing to do with you. The addicts in distant cities are abstractions, numbers in news you don't watch, faces you'll never meet. What's real are your children with new shoes, your wife without dark circles of worry, the peasants who work for you feeding their own families with the money you pay them. Morality, you discover, is a complex calculation where distant suffering weighs less than nearby well-being, where invisible consequences fade before tangible benefits. The men from the mountain treat you with respect because you're productive and reliable. They invite you to meetings where logistics and expansion are discussed. They consult you about the soil quality in neighboring valleys they want to incorporate into the network. You're no longer just a peasant. You're an important link in a chain that moves millions, an agricultural professional in an industry that turns out to be the most profitable in the world. But prosperity has a price nobody mentions until it's too late to negotiate it. The military appears one day without warning, helicopters breaking the valley's silence like thunder from an angry god. Soldiers descending, with rifles and the authority of those who can destroy everything you've built with a single order. This time they only come to burn a neighboring plot, a message for someone who didn't meet some invisible quota. But the message is also for you. A reminder that the protection the men from the mountain promise has limits they never specified. You start noticing the small tensions you used to ignore. The rumors of rival groups disputing territories, the names that disappear from conversations without explanation, the way payments sometimes arrive late with excuses that sound rehearsed. Your wife starts asking when you're going to stop, when you'll have enough to buy a house in the city and start over. And you have no answer because the truth is there's no way to stop. That each harvest ties you tighter to a network that doesn't allow desertions. That the knowledge you've accumulated makes you valuable, but also dangerous if you decided to leave. Your children grow up without knowing exactly what dad does, but the oldest is starting to suspect, starting to ask questions you answer with lies that are less and less convincing. And you see in his eyes the moment when admiration starts mixing with something that might be shame. The fall begins with something so small that at first it seems insignificant. A new worker who turned out to be an informant, an aerial photograph that captured what it shouldn't have captured, a bribe that didn't reach the right official. The details don't matter because the result is the same. One morning you wake up to the sound of helicopters, and before you can process what's happening, there are armed men surrounding your house, shouting orders in a formal Spanish that sounds strange after years of only hearing the mountain dialect. Your wife screams, your children cry, and you raise your hands slowly because any sudden movement would be the last you'd ever make. They handcuff you, cover your head with a bag that smells of sweat from others who came before, put you in a vehicle that takes you far from everything you know. In the darkness of that bag, as the vehicle bounces along roads you can no longer see, your mind does what all minds do when the world collapses. It searches for answers that don't exist and culprits that don't matter. You think about the first day the men from the mountain arrived with their seeds and their proposal, about the decision that seemed so clear, when hunger was stronger than caution. You wonder if there was another option, if you could have found another way to feed your children, if the land you cultivated your whole life could have given enough, if you had worked harder, prayed stronger, waited longer. The cell where they put you is small, damp, and full of men who tell stories similar to yours with different details. Peasants from other valleys, from other mountains, from other countries even, all trapped in the same network that promised salvation and delivered condemnation. The adhesive lawyers the state assigns are young people who look at their phones more than your eyes, who explain hurriedly that sentences for cultivation are severe, that cooperation could reduce the years, but that cooperating means turning in the men from the mountain, and turning in the men from the mountain means your family will pay a price no sentence reduction can compensate. You choose silence, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. And the silence costs you decades in a prison where the days blend into a gray paste of meaningless routines. Your wife visits at first, bringing news of children who grow up without you, of the oldest who dropped out of school to work, of the middle one who went north without saying goodbye, of the youngest who still asks when dad is coming back, even though she should already know that dad isn't coming back. The visits become less frequent, the years accumulate, and one day you receive a letter informing you that your wife died from something the city doctors probably would have cured if she had had money to get to the city. In the solitude of your cell, you look at the stained ceiling and think about the land you cultivated your whole life, about the seeds you planted hoping for harvests that would feed your family, about the irony that the only abundant harvest you achieved was the one that brought you here. The guard announces dinner time, and you get up with bones that ache more each year, walking toward a cafeteria where the food tastes like nothing, and the faces are interchangeable, wondering if it was worth it, knowing the question has no answer because answers require options, and you never had options, just different ways to lose. Somewhere in the mountains, in a valley the government keeps forgetting, another peasant looks at his withered fields while men with seeds and promises approach down the road. And the story begins again, because stories like yours never end. They just change protagonists while the land remains there, waiting, indifferent, eternal.